Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Temple of Ghosts by J.H. Moncrieff from Death Zone Books. This is the third in a series, and in this book, Kate and Jackson. Well, you know what? Before I get into that, let's kind of go back. The first book is City of Ghosts, where we meet Jackson and Kate. And they actually meet for the first time. They're both in China on a vacation tour package, and Jackson is dealing with a ghost. He doesn't realize it yet. And he meets Kate, who is a psychic, and they deal with some haunty stuff. And then in the second book, The Girl Who Talks to Ghosts, trying to read it from over there. In The Girl Who Talks to Ghosts, it's about a year later, I believe. Kate and Jackson have stayed in touch, and I think Jackson's about to move to Kate's town so they can be together, move in with Kate, and they get a case. Kate gets a call to help this young girl named Lily, who's having some supernatural problems. Kate and Jackson deal with it. I'm trying to avoid any really going into details about other books that I'm not actually reviewing right now. But all of that brings us to this, which takes place pretty much immediately after the events of The Girl Who Talks to Ghosts. It starts in the middle of the action with Kate and Jackson rushing back to a hospital room where Lily is. And so I don't know what I'm doing today. For your nutshell, basically, there's some more spooky stuff going on centering around Lily and her father and her uncle, who works in the military and has been stationed over in Egypt, who died over there. And excuse me, to save Lily and solve this supernatural mystery, Kate and Jackson are going to have to go to Egypt and deal with some crazy stuff. That's your nutshell, I suppose. For the too long didn't watch folks, if anybody's still here. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. Now, the first book was very much focused on Jackson. I'd say it's Jackson's book. He's the character we meet first. We're following him. Eventually, he meets Kate, and but he's still the main character, in my opinion. And then The Girl Who Talks to Ghosts, I think most of the focus is on Kate, as she's trying to help Lily. Jackson is there to help her. Excuse me. But again, I believe, it's been a little while since I read it, but I believe one could say that Kate is the main character of that book. But now it's pretty even. We even have the chapters are either from Kate's perspective or from Jackson's perspective. They're labeled so we know whose POV we've got. And it's not necessarily a one-to-one. You might have 2 Kates in a row and then a Jackson and then back to Kate. But the 2 of them are telling the story. And so, as I said, it starts with them rushing back to the hospital where Lily is after the events of the previous book. And then some crazy stuff happens, and they have to call in some friends to try to figure out what's going on. And Kate has this friend at the local university who's an Egyptologist, but she's disappeared. Is that tied to this somehow? So they end up going to Egypt, and all sorts of crazy stuff ensues. And I think J.H. Moncrieff's biggest strength is her characters. She's very, very good at giving us believable, mostly likable characters. Of course, there's bad guys sometimes, and but they're still well written bad guys. I like the growing relationship between Kate and Jackson. Kate being a psychic, a professional psychic, Jackson is a writer who has never had to deal with this sort of thing, didn't even know it existed until the first book. And there is a thing in here. Jackson keeps harping on something, for lack of a better way to put it. And I couldn't decide if it was realistic or if I found it really annoying that he just kept kind of pulling at this thread. And I realized that the fact that I thought it might just be annoying indicates how realistic it is, because people annoy me all the time. And so if this character was annoying me with this thing, then that probably means it's the way people would be. See, I'm trying to avoid, as always, spoiling anything. So yeah, I like the characters very much. Moncrieff is fantastic at characters, whether it's in this series with Kate and Jackson and their friends and the people they're trying to help, or in any of her other books. She really writes really nice characters. Not, you know what I mean, not necessarily nice characters, but nicely written characters, well written characters, well rounded characters. This book, I feel, was more action adventure than the previous two. If the first two books were ghost stories, let's say, and plot wise, no comparison, but let's say the first two books are like The Haunting of Hill House or any type of traditional sort of ghost story, which again, not saying they are, but that's the feel one might get. This is more like Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. I mean, there's plenty of crazy supernatural stuff going on, but there's lots of running around. I could probably say this since it's on the back cover, but water turns to blood, frogs fall from the sky, an unlikely stowaway lurks in her kitchen. It's Kate's kitchen. So there's all sorts of crazy, almost over the top kind of stuff going on. I can't really tell you too much about it, just what was on the back cover there. But it had more of a grandiose adventure feel to it. There are creepy things going on, but there's also more sort of cinematic. Again, the thing that, and probably because so much of it takes place in Egypt, just made me think of Brendan Fraser's The Mummy movies. At least the first two. I never saw the third one. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'd hate to see J.H. Moncrieff get into a rut in writing the series and just making the stories, the same old thing each time. Oh, and one of the other great things is that Moncrieff travels to all these different places. I can't say now there are 3.5 more books in this series so far. I don't know that she's been to every place in the books that I haven't read yet, but I do know in the first three books, she has been to each of these locations, and so that lends some authenticity to these foreign locales. There is a teaser in the back of the book for a spin-off series that's supposed to follow that Egyptologist friend of Kate's, but I don't think it ever came to fruition. I don't think any of my books that I have by Moncrieff are these books. She does have another spin-off series with a friend of Kate's. I haven't read those yet, but I don't think the Egyptologist books ended up getting made. I'll have to ask her sometime. I hate to do that though. I don't know if it's something I should bring up, because I know authors don't necessarily like to talk about books of theirs that are out of print, which of course is going to annoy them because they're not making any money off their books if they're out of print. I don't know how they feel about talking about books that ended up not getting made, finished, finding a buyer or a publisher. So yeah, I don't know if I'll ask her about that or not. But anyway, this is Temple of Ghosts. We don't need to talk about that other stuff. 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. A rollicking adventure with some crazy over the top stuff going on. Some really interesting characters. Things I want to say, but I shouldn't, and I won't because they're pretty spoilery. But there's some really interesting things, in my opinion, going on here. There was one scene in particular that's probably my favorite, although it's not. I don't know if you'd call it a scene in the book because it's simply someone telling someone else about something that happened. So it's not present. We're not reading it happening, right now. It happened in the past and someone's just recounting that story. But there's just basically one sentence, something that happened that made me go, yeah, this is fantastic. Absolutely love it. So, yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. I don't read these books often enough, as I said. Well, there's 3.5 more. I keep saying half because there's a little novella that's sort of a linking kind of story. And I've actually already read that because it's got a Christmas theme. And I read it around Christmas. So there's 2 more. Let's see. Forest of Ghosts, Mask of Ghosts. Then Carol of Ghosts is the little novella that I read. And then the last one is Oracle of Ghosts. So that's the entire Ghost Talker series for now. And then, as I said, there's a spin-off. There's a character, Laura, I believe her name is, who's another medium / psychic like Kate. And so she has her own little spin-off series. And I should read these more often. I just have so many books to read. So many books to read that I don't get back around to things like this as often as I should. Anyway, Temple of Ghosts, J.H. Moncrieff, Death Zone books, 4 out of 5 stars. I recommend it. If you want great characters, if you want a bit of romance, it's Kate and Jackson have a relationship, and we've gotten to see that relationship grow over these 3 books from them, again, for meeting. We don't see the correspondence over the year that took place between books, but we we hear about it. And then at this point, they've moved in together. And I like to see that. I like to see the characters grow and their relationships grow and change. Even if it does, in this case, lead to Jackson harping on something that is realistic because it's annoying. So yeah, I say check it out. Check out at least the first 3. Can't speak to the rest, but I'm sure they're good. J.H. Moncrieff is a fantastic writer. So there you go. Question for this video. Oh, I don't know because I never think ahead. Do you give extra credit to a book if it takes place someplace that you like? I don't know if that's the best way to put it. I'm interested in like Egyptian mythology, and so having this book take place in Egypt, it's modern day Egypt, but it does deal with, it gets into a little bit into Egyptian mythology. So I dig that. I think J.H. Moncrieff, she writes books that take place in all sorts of different places, but when you do something like this where it's Egypt and I'm like, hey, cool, Egypt, I like the Egyptian mythology and the gods and all that stuff, I'm drawn in just a little bit more. I think, I'm not 100% sure. I think one of the books might take place in or around Dracula's castle, because I think J.H. Moncrieff visited there. I get her newsletter and stuff, but again, some of these books have been out for quite a few years, so I don't remember the details, especially since I haven't read the one that may or may not take place around Dracula's castle. But if so, that's another one that's gonna get a little extra something for me. So unless it's incredibly disappointing, it just gets that little extra point because it's a location that I'm interested in. But what about you? Or doesn't it matter? If you're a big fan of Ireland, do you get excited when something you're reading takes place in Ireland? I mean, you know what I'm asking. Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is EricSmith5757. That's Eric with K, ERIKSMITH 5757. On Blue Sky, I am @EL Smith. That's all I've got for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.